Hey, everybody, it's CJ Graham. That's right, Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, Part 6. And you're listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall.
Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Stolle welcoming you back to Breaking the Fourth Wall podcast. It's been a while. I wanted to jump on real quick and give a slight intro. This episode was recorded yesterday on Veterans Day, along with Chris Rutter from Telling It Like It Is, and of course my co-host Serenity Stone. We were discussing some very important topics about the decline in military recruitment. Thought it was fitting for Veterans Day. But we went right into the topic of conversation and did not do a proper intro, so I just wanted to let you guys know who was on the channel today. Welcome you back to Breaking the Fourth Wall. It's been a while. I'm really rusty at this, so I do apologize. But we will be going directly into this episode, and I want to give a particular disclaimer, guys. We do go into some topics of conversations that may be sensitive or offensive to certain people, so please, viewer or listener discretion advised. Otherwise, enjoy this show, because I can always edit.
I am too.
Edit for where we decide to start. So let her get her token. So,
Okay.
the fuck was that? Were you blowing that into a kazoo?
No, it's Smoke Buddy.
Smoke Buddy? Doesn't it look like one of those like whirl whistles you get like Chuck E. Cheese?
No, man, like you have this and nobody smells it.
She said, "No, man."
Can you put that out to every driver in Pennsylvania, please?
No, man. Make love, not war.
Right? You gotta love it, baby.
Yeah,
Peace love, fucking freaks. All right, let's go.
we're going. Like I said, I'm already recording.
Oh,
Outstanding.
well,
All right.
well, let's 3, 2, 1 it, and that's an outtake.
All right. So, all right, Stolle, you go ahead and roll in first. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, we're going to be discussing something very near to us, and it's kind of ironic that we're doing this on Veterans Day. So, it's been a long time on podcasting. I kind of stepped away from it for a while for personal reasons and all, so I'm not going to play this one today. I'm going to pass this one on to Sirenity or Chris and be more of a reactor because, well, quite honestly, they're more informed than I am on this. So let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll go ahead and we'll kick this off. This is November the 11th of Veterans Day here in the foul year of our Lord 2022. And we've got a lot of stuff that we want to discuss as far as what the current recruiting numbers are and everything that goes along with it, what kind of discussion to have here and what the next generational effect could possibly have as far as people's reaction to recruiting into the military currently for the United States of America on this very important day, the 11th month, the 11th day at the 11th hour of Veterans Day.
Well,
Happy Veterans Day.
Before you jump, let me quick statistic here because I know you're kind of the fact checker. You had mentioned before we started recording that the numbers had dropped, if I remember correctly, like 22%.
33.
Or 33% over the past 2 years. Overall, could you give me a rough estimate of, like how far it's fallen? Was that just a straight drop, or has it been a steady decline the past 2 years? And
yeah, for sure.
Decline, how has that curve gone? You know what I mean?
Okay, so while he's looking that up,
go ahead.
Isn't it the lowest a recruitment rate that we've had since 2007 or 2009. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was 2007, which was when we were in Desert Storm. And not many people were being recruited.
So,
Storm,
as of the
Operation
year,
Iraqi Freedom, because if I remember correctly, Desert Storm was in the 90s.
yes.
Okay, well, what's the Freedom one? What year is it? 2007?
Okay, so we
Whenever
have
Bush-
Desert. We have Desert Storm in 1993.
Great, thank you.
And then we have Desert Storm number 2 in 1998. For many people who do not remember, we did actually invade Yemen, and that was the beginning of the Afghanistan invasion or incursion. And then we began Operation Liberty and Freedom. Freedom was 2006, 2007, whenever the first recruitment numbers started to drop. However, currently it's 29% down of applicants 17 to 24 since 2007. Currently are the numbers for all 4 branches of the military, and then it gets weirder from there.
Well,
So that's a
4
quarter
branches.
or more or less.
And when you say 4 branches, you mean Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We're not talking Coast Guard. We're not talking Space Force. We're not talking National Guard. We're talking the 4.
We're not talking the Guard in either sense, either the coastal or the national, and we're not talking Space Force. That's actually part of the intelligence community. Just for anybody who is wondering out there, that has nothing to do with the actual military. That has to do with the intelligence community. Department of Homeland Security mainly oversees Space Force,
which is kind of weird.
right?
I have 2 of them kind of close by me, and I just want to stop by, and they have the big signs that say Space Force out in front of them now, and just like take a selfie.
Do they have the new logo?
Yeah.
Do they have the new logo with
Yes.
the Sphinx and the pyramid?
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, Buckley is the one I'm talking about in Colorado, and
Wait, Space
Yeah,
Force has
that
a new
one.
logo? They don't use the
Yeah.
Star Trek arrow no more?
So it does look like the Star Trek silhouette. It does look like the emblem. If you were to just shadow over it, it does actually look like the insignia that we all know from Captain Kirk. However, if you open that up, you look at it, and it is the Sphinx and the pyramid. But it does
I'm
look
totally
like
gonna
the
do a
Star Trek
selfie.
insignia.
give me time. I will post a selfie of me at the Space Force. I keep driving by it, and I'm going to do it for you guys.
See, Colorado.
Here's one thing just to dive into this conversation. Among Americans surveyed by the Pentagon who are in target age range for recruiting, only 13% had parents who had served in the military, down from approximately 40% in 1995. Now we're talking about my age group and creeping into your all's age group, Stolle and Serenity.
I was in
at that point in time. Okay, all right, perfect. So, we're dealing with, at that point in time, 40% of everybody who was recruitment age had, almost half and half. You had family that had direct military tie to you in 1995. Whereas for me in the 1980s, there was a little bit of a downgrade because we're talking about post-Vietnam. But in the 90s, after the first Gulf War, the military recruitment thing became a real big thing, and they reintroduced the GI Bill. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, wait. Let me clarify this.
Yes.
You were alive in what? Wait. We're going back to Vietnam here. So you were alive when Vietnam ended?
Yes, I was alive whenever we pulled out from Vietnam. I was alive whenever we had the gas shortage, and I was alive during the Iran fucking hostage situation. Yeah, I'm that old.
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of things that I actually remember, whereas you guys are going to draw from facts. So that's why I think it's such a fun and interesting conversation, because I think that we have a little bit of a dichotomy or a little bit of a range with our age groups, especially involving our family experiences, that creates a different relationship with how serving the military has changed so drastically, featuring what has gone on over the past 2 years post removing ourselves from Afghanistan. Does anybody else see this as a correlation to these lower numbers like I do?
Well, I can kind of see. I can kind of see that, but I could also see a lot of other factors involved. I can see social factors being involved. I can see the military changing just stupid rules to incorporate others that have no business being in a combat-ready situation. I'm trying to be nice about this. You know, a lot of different things like that, I think, have also played a major factor in it. And I know we're going to get into it. I know there's a conspiracy theory part of it that Serenity wants to get into, but also the fact of like the government influence, lack of trust in the current government. The only reason I say this, the only reason I say it where it sounds a little sarcastic coming from me is I don't lean as much towards the government as maybe you guys will, because even when I was in the service, the government was fucked up. I mean, the only difference is it's a little more out in the open, but we all knew the government was shit to begin with. Yeah.
But who do you think the government is? If you think the government is voting on this president or this Senate member or this congressman, it's not that. It's follow the money, and it's going back to like Klaus Schwab, and like whose actually fingers are pulling at which governments to do what. Like we've lost faith in our government because of things that have happened. And in the long run, that I think is what's going to affect our recruitment, is the lack of Americanship.
Can I jump in real quick on that one real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so Serenity said the magic words for me. She mentioned Klaus Schwab. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, all right. So here's the one thing, and this is what I have come to describe over the past couple of years on my show, is what we call now, on Telling You Like It Is, the evil triad. The first corner of it is the military-industrial complex. The second corner of it is the big corporate buy-off, the top 1% elite, the neocons, and then at the top of the triangle is the mainstream media, who disseminates the messaging for either one of those groups, and in the middle is the politicians, who make sure that all three of those interests get their shit taken care of, not you and I. That's the New World Order conspiracy in a nutshell, right?
The Great Reset.
Okay. So the one thing that the New World Order does not control at this point in time, now in the next 5 years, this could very well change with current trends in place. And the number one trend is the amount of bodies that we're able to recruit to our direct frontline military. Chris, as a naval, as a seaman, then you
also second class, but thank you.
And thank you very much for your service, brother. I love you for that. But
yes, cheers
at the end of the day, with you being that frontline defense, you understand the difference of the fact that there are three guys next to you as opposed to only two, which is what our current inductees are looking at. If we are 33% behind,
right,
and that has been going on for the past 2 years. Now we're going into the third year, which means we are an entire recruiting class behind schedule, as our British counterparts would like to say.
Yeah, like how long is basic training? Because I think that it's like a year.
Depends.
I'm looking this up right now.
Depends
just so we have the numbers.
I know the branch is a little different. When I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, for boot camp, it was 8 weeks.
Okay, so
So for the Navy, it's 8 weeks, and for the Air Force, it's 8 weeks, and for the Marines, it's 12, and for the Army, it's 10. That's what I'm looking at right now on DuckDuckGo.
okay, but that's just basic.
Right, and then you can
That's just
tack
basic training,
on your school, your classifications. You wind up being a Navy SEAL, for example. That's many more.
Okay, so
separately. But basic training itself is anywhere from 8 to 12.
Okay,
12 weeks.
So
12 weeks is the max.
Okay, so from basic training to being able to be in Iraq or in Russia or Ukraine or Japan or whatever, from that 8 weeks, how much do you have to go through in order to be prepared to go to those places? How long?
So I'm looking at this right now, and what the years or what the numbers per year in recruiting class actually means to the U.S. military. It is approximately 5,800 members per cycle. So figure every 12 weeks during the course of a year, that's 4 cycles.
Yeah.
5,800 people per cycle with 4 cycles. We are at a minimum of 22,000 behind of protecting our front line just by current recruitment numbers.
Okay, but that's every 12 weeks.
Right.
No, that's for the 5,800 per cycle, which would be a 12-week max. And that was the height of it during Vietnam. That's what I'm looking at right now on DuckDuckGo. And during the Gulf 1 and 2, it was 3,600 and 4,800. And then during Afghanistan, it was 2,400 per cycle. Again, 12 weeks being the max, 5 cycles per year. So we're talking a minimum over the past 3 years of being about 12,000 people behind on what is protecting our front line. Now, can I drop like a little pipe bomb in the middle of this real quick?
Before you do, let me just answer Serenity's question about like how long from basic is somebody prepared to go, be dropped.
Oh, yeah, good answer. Yeah.
Again, it depends on specialization and everything else, but if you're talking about like somebody coming out of boot camp and you just hand them a gun and say stand there, straight from
like
boot.
Vietnam?
Straight from boot you could go. So
so every 12 weeks, during the height of Vietnam, we expected 5,000 guys a month. During the Gulf, we expected 3,000, and since Afghanistan, beginning in 2002 approximately, since Afghanistan, we expected 2,000 people a month to go through formal training to be, here's a rifle, stand there.
Right.
But those are the people that we need the most.
So it doesn't specialization to answer your question, but if you're just looking for bodies to fill the space and be backup, straight from boot camp, a rifle and told their regiment do what they tell you.
Okay, this is the reason I'm asking. It's just not saying that World War III is on our heels, but just watching nuclear activity and things that are happening in the world. And let's say we go to World War III in the next 2 to 5 years, maybe 2 months, I don't know. This recruitment and lack of bodies is going to affect it. And even if some guy could be a fucking space scientist and discover the new fucking secret to life, they're going to put him on the front line if we need those boots, like every 8 weeks, they're going to just throw people out there because we're so far behind.
Very possibly if we need the body. And you also, with America more so than most other countries, you also have to remember too that we have a Second Amendment for a reason. And if we're talking World War III will be fought on American soil. And if it's fought on American soil, you have plenty of people military trained but have loaded for bear. First place in the world any army would ever try to invade.
Yep.
Because most of our citizens are more well armed than militaries.
Between South Carolina and Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico. If you want to go, let's just cut it off at Colorado and leave out Arizona and New Mexico for the moment. Between South Carolina and Colorado, there are over 37 million fighting men fully armed to the teeth based on the guns that are in circulation between those states. Over 30 million people, which is almost exactly the equal size of the marching army of China.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, fuck with us, you're gonna die, bitch.
But kind of, because you're dealing. Okay, so let me drop this pipe bomb here, just real quick here. Okay, so and then we could go from there. Here's the first thing that I think of in dealing with this conversation. In the past 2 years, we have gone through a significant geopolitical, geoeconomically, world impacting event, right?
Right.
With the lockdowns, right?
The illegal.
Okay, so during the course of those 2 years, from the end of 1999, the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2022, in that period of time, do you realize that the age of what is currently a draftable adult, which is from the ages of 17 to fucking 40, okay? Let me clarify that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That is the eligible draft age, okay? And in the last 2 years, we've lost 10 times the Vietnam War era impact on a generation.
Was that
Vietnam lost 58,000 people. So supposedly, according to the world statistics, just in the United States, from the age of 17 to 39, we lost 225,000 adults.
because of COVID?
We lost 4 times what was lost in 18 years of fighting in Vietnam. Let that sink in for just a second. Vietnam, from 1960 to 1976, we lost 58,000 people. We have a fucking wall that goes of 100 meters with every person's name engraved on it. But in the last 2 years, we lost 4 times that amount. And people are wondering why we don't have enough people to recruit to the military or work in restaurants. Let that just marinate for just a second.
Well, I marinate that, but there's also, again, the social status in it. Again, I'm going to speak from personal experience and what I've seen in current trend of society. So I'm probably going to piss some people off what I say, and quite honestly, I don't give a fuck.
We never do.
Never do, but you have to understand, if I'm going to be dragged back into podcasting, kicking and screaming, I'm no longer going to be curbing my tongue to play people that I really don't give a fuck about their opinion to begin with. So when it comes, the problem is like when I joined the military back in the 90s and served, yes, I'm a military background. My mother was in the Coast Guard, my father was in the Coast Guard, my grandfather was Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. He in 4 different branches of the service in his 26 years he served in the military. Before him, I have aunts and uncles that have been in every branch, but the Air Force have been in every branch, but the Air Force. I come from a military family, so I understand the military mind frame. In fact, I understand it better than most anything else that I do in life. I've been a podcaster, I've been a wrestler, I've been a musician. I do not understand how these things work as well as the upbringing I have had inside a military family. I understand the military and how it thinks and how people in the military think. And one of the major things that is part of most people in the service, and myself included in the 90s, is a sense of duty and honor. The ability to turn around and say, you know what, I love my country, I love my family, I love my respective God enough to turn around and go into a service that I know I would wind up dying in. And they don't pay me shit for doing it. Okay? Trust me, you McDonald's fucking burger flippers make more money than a petty officer second class E5 in the Navy. But the point
that brings up a point.
Go ahead.
That's
okay,
another point.
so
that's another point.
Yeah. Okay, so if we're losing out on recruitment, then let's think about reasons why people do join, like you, the honor of your family, your desire to, defend your country. But then
before we have that part of the discussion, okay, so let's look through the generations and then look at what is on the table now, right? Because there's a difference between whenever Chris joined, whenever my little brother joined, because he fought in Afghanistan and Chris wasn't at that part of Afghanistan. My little brother was in like 2012, and Chris was way before that, right?
I was in between the Gulf Wars.
and 2.
I was in between the Desert Storms, so yeah.
You had 8, And then before that, you have the 80s, which for the America was a very hidden regime. That's whenever we had the Contras, and we had Honduras, and all that fucking shit, right? And then before that, you had the 70s. So I'm looking at on DuckDuckGo, and this is kind of correlating to what I was talking about before. And during the Vietnam War era, the average enlisted or drafted men, 78% of their family had military direct ties. So in other words, what they're saying in this report is that at least your uncle or your dad or your brother were in the military.
Or your sister.
For everybody in Vietnam. And now
Me too.
Right. No, I'm trying to I'm generalizing. I'm not trying to.
We're just teasing you. We're totally teasing you.
I'm not trying to be all woke with this bullshit. Anyway, so going into the 80s.
Yeah, start using preferred pronouns.
Going into the 80s, after Vietnam and after the hostage problem, and after Marines got shot up and grenaded during the 80s. That number dropped down to 48%. And then in the 90s, Chris, whenever you joined, from 1992, that 51% had direct family ties to the military. By the time you joined, I'm guessing that was 96, 97? Okay. All right. Cool.
Close.
Okay. All right. Cool. At that point in time, it was 6%. And then in 2001, whenever we began the Afghan conflict, and not including Yemen and any of these other oil-bearing districts, and everybody who has been in the military for the past 20 plus years, you all know that your body parts were sacrificed because of oil. For the most part, you do realize that's what happened to you. And then since then, now going into what we're currently dealing with at the end of the Afghan pullout, in 2021, the summer of August, that number reflected only 36% had direct ties to the military. So we're really straining the attachment or the direct correlation from one person to the next. Now only 1/3 instead of a half of our military had previous military experience in their family, and that number is dropping with this reduction in the recruitment in their family, and that number is dropping with this reduction in the recruitment that's currently going on. That's dropped since Biden came in office. Just in case anybody wanted to talk about that, we might cover that later.
Well,
okay.
That kind of goes back to where I was going with my story here, when I was talking about the social construct that's kind of hurting the military, as far as again, people before my generation, people in my generation, and so on. I do see a coalition between people who had military family, so they had military experience, like I was explaining. That was leading up to the fact nowadays people do not have it in them, whether it's because they decided to rebel against their parents, or especially nowadays where people are just way too fucking self-centered. All they care about is making sure that they get what they get. They get treated the way they want to get treated. Make sure you use my pronouns and don't disrespect me while I'm drinking my fucking Starbucks and typing on my iPhone because I'm so oppressed, and everything else. The problem is that nobody in this day and age is willing to serve or sacrifice for the good of the country or the other. There is no love of country. There is no love of countrymen and women. And I think that is one of the major factors that's going. Yes, okay, we hate our current government, okay, but we've always hated our government, but we've always loved our country, and we were always willing to sacrifice to keep this country free. But now we have a bunch of fucking snot-nosed little fucking rags that want to turn around and tell us that America is evil, America must be destroyed, we should embrace socialism, blah blah blah. This is the type of shit that's ruining the minds of people that could be potential servicemen and women.
Okay, everyone who loved that comment needs to watch Snowflake Mountain, because that show is awesome.
Here's my response to that. Okay, so there's 10% of the right who are trust fund babies that we could never trust.
Hey.
Even, hey, I understand. Hey, look here, calm down, woman. So I got 10% here on the right, trust fund babies, the ones who maybe could graduate from West Point and the Citadel and, the Naval Yard. Okay. And then I have 10% over here on the left, the trust fund babies who will protest war, whose family made their billions of dollars on the ranching of cattle, and now they want to fucking talk about climate change because cows fart. Okay?
Cows fart.
I got the 10% over here. I got the 10% over here, cow farter group. I got the 10% over here, trust fund babies who will never see the front of war, but they act like war heroes. And then in the middle, I got 80% of the people, and I think at least 50% of them truly hold the lineage and the honor and the support of the country. Serenity, stop laughing, motherfucker.
I'm sorry, I can't.
You got the cow fart sniffers over here, and you got the fucking babies over here. Okay, in the middle, out of that 80%, I say 50% of them behold themselves very well to what the country expects a military person to be. So
okay, but we just went through 2020, and a lot of these people had some
I think the 2 years just proved to us how poorly we can drop down all of that. How poorly or how quickly we can drop down to the lowest common denominator. Maybe.
Okay, but I'm talking about, let's say that 40 or 50% of eligible recruitment people, they probably had some time during 2020 where, maybe they did some searches and they found an online therapist just to talk through some things, Maybe they went to a doctor and got some, happy pills because they're feeling depressed.
Or they did the right and went to Canada fucking prescription fucking words. I'm like, what?
I'm here now.
That's what I was going to say to your 50%. Is talk to 18-year-old one right now. At my job, we got a little helper, 18 years old, doesn't know how to pull us up, has tattoos on his face,
doesn't know how to change the tire,
has tattoos all over his face, and seriously, sit down and have a conversation with him, and this is almost every person 16 to 22 nowadays. If you ask them about interest in military structure and discipline and an enactment for your future, they don't want to talk about it. But they do want to talk about smoking weed, the next anime show, and what score they got on Call of fucking Duty. They do not care about sacrificing for others.
Okay, what I'm talking about, let's say that they did care. What I was trying to say is those people that maybe we do want to recruit, maybe they do want to be recruited, but because of the shit we've been through since the beginning of 2020 and all the stuff that comes with first, maybe they went online and found went to a protest restaurant. They have mental stability problems. So they're not part of the people that are eligible to join our military because of the shit that our military put us in.
So based on
just quiet.
Chris can fact check this, but at the time I knew military criminal, depending on the severity of the charge, not disqualified service. You could have
I already for that because I had a few last year who was offered you could go to jail or you can go to the army.
Right.
Desperate.
Okay.
Well, no, they've always been that way.
That's the same thing that was going on in the 80s.
Outside of murder and rape.
That's the same thing that was going on in the late 60s. The late 60s.
I'm just saying how
in the 80s.
How easy it is. You watch TV, Yup commercial TV, you see at least every other commercial break something about online therapy or one mental, stability and can you sleep? Is this going on? They drag you into this therapy and then they diagnose you with some fucked up shit like PTSD from staying in the house too long or some, depression or something. And then some of those can disqualify you from joining the military.
In the psychological aspect, you're right. Something like that could disqualify service. I was referring to the criminal record, the jail time. And again, you could fact check me.
I know, but that's just one of the things.
Outside of like murder and rape, you're not disqualified from service.
Okay, but I'm saying like obesity. Okay, but I'm saying like obesity.
It's a criminal enterprise involving violence with a weapon is what will keep you from being inducted into the military. So actually rape a whole harem of women as long as you didn't use a gun to do it, you can still get into the military.
As far as your psychological, yes, that is probably something that has been hurting the military a lot, especially because all these fucking brain dead psychiatrists that pass out fucking pills like Pez dispensers for every little fucking thing. Oh, you had a depressing thought back in 1973. Okay, well, you're a manic depressant now, so here's a whole bunch of fucking pills. Oh, and by the way, because your left eye twitched while I was talking to you, you're on the autism spectrum, so here's all this shit too. It's bullshit. It's bullshit, and that is hurting the military and other types of services.
Maybe the medical the medical fucking shit. I down and don't hate me, but doctors are fucking crap. My dad, R.I.P., and I love him so much, but they have changed. And they diagnose for little things that you might not have, and the mental stuff that we went through in 2020 and losing one and, you know, all going on now in 2022. Honestly, the mental shit is keeping a lot of people away from the military, which probably drops their numbers down to 20% or 22%.
Well, let me get Chris's opinion on this here, because that brings up a very good point, and I kind of brought up the point too with the psychology. Even back when I was a kid, man, they were passing out Ritalin for kids that were hyperactive. I mean, it legalized speed. So I mean, even back then, they were always trying to find a way of putting us on fucking mind-numbing pills and diagnose us with bullshit psychosis, which does hurt services. That may have had a major issue and decline even back then.
Do you remember what it was called before Ritalin?
I do not.
Okay. So originally,
methyltrexine or something, right? Something with the meth word.
It was a ET drug. So anyway, ethylene. Okay, so 1970s we had ET, young men, anywhere from the age of 4 to 10 were environment. ET drug began at a diagnosis of 3%. In the 1980s, I'm looking at DuckDuckGo for all of this, okay, just so you guys know.
Okay,
yeah. Drug overdose signs from Recovery Village. Beginning in 1981 to 90, it shows that kids actually prescribed Adderall, which was the drug before.
And the drug afterwards,
they were prescribed Adderall at a rate of 3.9%. So now we've raised from 1.9% to 3.9% by the 80s. Going into the 90s, now I'm looking at the AmericanAddictionCenters.org. In the 1990s, we used Adderall to begin at a prescription rate of 7.8%. By the end of the 90s, we're ending at 11.2%. Now we're dealing with Vyvanse. 1992 to 2008, the prescription rate was 23.6%.
Mm-hmm.
23.6% of a diagnosed pill that is basically parenting in a pill. Your kid's too high, give this, zone him out.
Does it make sense why there's so many Democrats now?
1.2% in the 70s, 20.8%.
Is it any wonder that people vote AOC?
Do you realize how horrible that is? Mm-hmm. That is like saying that heroin in 5 years ago from 10% to 150 now. That's what it means. It's horrible.
You know that Hitler created methamphetamine as something.
They perfected it.
Okay, well, did it so his military and especially pilot would be able to stick in a period of time without sleeping.
Yeah, you're staying up for 96 hours, becomes psychotic than 48 hours ago. And that complicates every 24 hours. You become more delusional. You become more, in vision. And you're here. All of this shit is at 48. That's the rest of the military.
Of population.
But until 2018, yes, you are correct.
So all you meth and heroin on allegation, you have to thank for your high. Get in mind.
Well, you have the U.S. government. You have the U.S. government and the Teachers Association to thank for that for our young adult males.
But that is 25% that are receiving the pills. That's not the people that are getting it chopped up on the street in a little baggie and going to jail if they get it. That's like, I have to say, I'm not a fan of these people, but I do know a lot of people in my past, and people have struggled with methamphetamines because I'm in the music industry. Like, a lot of people struggle with meth and coke and alcohol and stuff. So that's, to me, like, a lot of the population, 25%, add maybe 20% of people in the world that have tried meth. Like, that's a high fucking number.
Whenever you're considering very high number, and you're considering that you're giving them very formative ages, then you end up with entire generations at a large percentage who are susceptible to those addiction problems that come from it. Because all you need, whenever we were kids, the worst thing was, what was it? Underdog, I'm here to save the day. He'd pop his fucking ring, and there was a pill that popped out. That's whenever I was a kid. That was Saturday morning cartoon, right? Right? You pop a pill, right? And it was Underdog there to save the fucking day.
There's your subliminal message update.
We had it. Serenity, we had it in our generation too. We had it in our generation too. We grew up on Mario popping mushrooms and stopping.
Yeah, they're popping.
I pop mushrooms
and jumping higher. The super mushroom.
Being able to break bricks with your fist. Being able to break.
Just when I was a kid, the main thing was Underdog. I'm here to save the day. I'm better.
Okay, but guess what? It taught you. It was telling you subliminal messages, everything. The government. Okay. Yeah. So for you, it's a kill and feel good.
That was during the
and that they were doing tests on fucking marijuana back then, and shrooms and methamphetamines.
Okay, there's a whole thing. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So you got told it's okay to pop a pill and strong and better.
It made you feel better. It had to be good.
Right. But then that helped the cycle of not just you, but the popping a pill.
Generation is the reason that people believe in pill. That's the reason.
That's what I'm saying. It's okay, but then you pass that on to, and then on their grades. Like, I'm a rebel. Was a doctor and told me, get the vaccine or you're gonna die. And I'm all like, get the vaccine, I'm gonna die. So I know you were your kids, even I was taught, like, the government tells you to do something medically, you fucking do it. But I'm
my dad going on fucking, I don't know at that point in time, so during 8, so I'm saying between the ages, and if he was cranked out fucking out or a coked out episode, this is the early 80s, I don't know. But he said if the government tells you, he was the person who told me about Underdog, pop a pill and say fuck, was like, that's what I would recommend, So
it goes farther than
I just don't know, like, the whole prevailing population is better through pharmaceuticals. I think with their efforts right now, with the recruitment being down right now, there's 30%. Now you have to remember why 2000 was so low. Everybody remembers the Bushes. We had Bush H and we have Bush W, right? Remember what made Bush W so fucking cool? Because he had a vice president called Cheney who lied to us about weapons of mass destruction in the war in Afghanistan. That's the reason our recruitment numbers are so low compared to the numbers. Because in 2007, it was actually broken that the fucking New York Post and the Pentagon White House lied about weapons mass fucking destruction. There's your question on why it's so big of a deal right now. On why the military recruiters so.
But how is that going to affect? Okay, so Rutter, you're very informed on this. So there's how many nukes going off every week that are testing from North Korea?
So the testing ballistics that they're doing in North Korea right now, where they're actually stated like that they're replicating or basically recreating situations where their silos are actually sending nukes to U.S. destination.
Yes.
They said that in the news just last week. Okay. But while they're doing that, approximately in Korea, Japan, and China, there's about 35 nuclear reactions that are happening per year right now as far as testing goes. So you're dealing with like 2 or 3 every month, just drop it in iguanas. We're going to have Godzilla here at some point. That's basically what's happening.
Well, let
Okay.
me ask
So-
let me ask Eamon's question. Going back to the weapons of mass destruction that we were live out that launched Operation Iraqi Liberation, which later was to our freedom because everybody was smart enough to Operation Iraqi Liberation spelled oil.
Liberation, when we're just trying to steal their oil, doesn't work, but freedom does.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the abbreviation is oil. It didn't take a genius. But now we're in,
That was the beginning of like real PR, whenever they did that.
but now we're in a situation where Russia's threatening nuclear weapons on not only Ukraine but the United States if we get involved anymore with Ukraine and stuff like that. From your guys' point of view, okay, recruitments went down because the government lied, surprise, about weapons of mass destruction. Now we have actual weapons of mass destruction being threatened. Shouldn't people be lining up saying, I'm not going to let that happen? If that was the main reason that the recruitment went down?
So since the beginning of 2020, the World Nuclear Research Foundation. It's an actual thing. You can look it up. I'll look it up here right now for everybody, just so I can give you the Google page that you can look it up on. The Nuclear Research Foundation shows that in the beginning of 2020, the likelihood of a nuclear war is 21%. Since then, down to, which is basically a replication of the nuclear clock.
Yeah.
Anybody who's in the middle close to actual nuclear war. So you guys have that on the submarines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
What
just
was your clock at?
I'm
Ready to say.
So I realized that was actually going on at that time. So I'm looking at here the likelihood of the nuclear war through the duration of the last decades, and from the height of the Cold War, which time. Man, this is the one time we're doing a video podcast.
We are.
I can show you an actual photo. I was in school in 1979 in southern India, where we hid in hallways with books over our heads because we were worried that Gorbachev was going to drop a nuclear bomb on the United States. That's how serious it was then, whenever I was 9 years old.
I was 2.
That's the
So you had to practice, right? You had to practice getting under your desk.
I practiced bomb drills in grade
Hiding
school.
under your desk.
That was the we did the hiding in the desk. Later, whenever the likelihood became less and less, that started reducing. Whenever in 1979, whenever I was 9 years old, so 4th or 5th grade, there's an actual picture of me in the newspaper in the town that I grew up with, only because my dad was the editor of the newspaper. Okay, but there was a picture of me hiding in the hallways with a book over my fucking head behind the lockers because we were acting bomb drills. Okay.
Is it necessary for everyone?
Everything from
Mandatory.
elementary to high school, they all did it.
Okay.
And we did 3 or 5 times. Okay.
Not a fire drill.
That's how it could be a 9-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just one thing to kind of sink in. Like, have your kids done that?
No.
I guarantee fucking they haven't.
Not even when I was in school. The
You
worst thing was a
didn't do
fucking fire drill.
There's a fire
Yeah.
drill. Yeah.
But you didn't do a nuclear bomb
no.
drill.
No, but at least from my own memory, the Cold War pretty much ended, or at least toned down enough to we could have the Moscow Music Peace Festival in 1990.
Yes.
When I was in school. So
In 86, whenever Reagan came out and said Gorbachev, tear the wall, that official ending of the end of the Cold War, right? That was my freshman year in high school. Okay.
Dude.
Yeah, right. Okay, so
Right.
much of this shit. That's why I talk about this. I thought I'd seen this shit before. People are talking about bullshit. This already happens for Ukraine and everything. So what's going there right now? If it was real, it would be disseminating amongst streets doing bomb drills. Everything that's going on right now with Ukraine, with Russia, and everything that's moving through
North Korea.
$50 billion military and humanitarian aid that we have sent to the Ukraine since August of 2021. Let me repeat that. August of 2021. You heard about it in February of 2022 whenever I was telling you the tanks won't fucking come because it's too fucking wet and they'll get stuck. That's the reason the tanks haven't started coming till now.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
Think about that. I said that on your network, Chris. And I said that on my page. Let me riddle you a question. Here's why the Russians won't actually invade until later this year, which that's what they're doing right now. But if there was any military crisis, as far as nuclear war, we would be training in the streets like I did as a 9-year-old. I promise you, if there was any
No,
real
you're right. But the question
But-
I posed was more on the in 2000 made us go or lied to get us into war for supposed weapons of mass destruction. That
it was 2000.
because everybody's like the military going to be the person who's blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
We know the shit's going on. Right. We know the shit's going on in Ukraine. Whether or not Russia has earnest invaded, whether or not Russia is in earnest making threats of nuclear usage.
I'm worried about world war, not single war.
But my
layers.
Right. My point is mainstream media hype and everything else, and these impressionable possible recruits are hearing this. If the factor was the government lied or the government's telling the truth, if they lied and they don't want to be puppets of a lie regime, but now we have a threat, wouldn't that awaken their patriotism? Hey, I have the ability to help stop this?
Okay, so here's the answer to that question. So dealing with this conversation, we're dealing with pipe bomb 1, pipe bomb 2. Okay, so here's pipe bomb 3.
Right.
Now everybody's hyping up the Ukrainian war. Right? You're dealing with everybody who's a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, every newspaper in between. Right now, we're really hyping up the Ukrainian war, right? Okay, so all that dictates, all that shows us there's a huge money grab and move. As soon as there's a threat to national security, how quick do you use messaging quicker? Not to have the Ukrainian flag on your Facebook. It's time to have the American flag on your book.
Should be now. Should be now.
Should be always.
It should be out there. We're not there. All we're doing is moving money. That's all we're doing right now. This is 2018. And for that, in 2008, when Obama first got in office and we invaded Yemen, while we're on the backstop of being the Afghanistan war, and since then, you've had many multinational conflicts where NATO has come in African countries, Ethiopia and other places like that. We're
burned as a witch.
We're burned alive in oil because they're so oil rich, but we have to kill off all their local heroes. This is going on all over the northern part of Africa except for Egypt. Everywhere around it, down to the Congo. This is currently going on, and the United States involved in 6 of these 13 conflicts. Just in everywhere, we're in the 1/3 of that country that actually involves other production. This is documented. Right. So the other thing that matters is while there's a move, we can put out whatever we cloud the subject, however we want to color the subject, as far as the media goes, because that's the parts of evil tree, right? You got mainstream media, you have the territorial complex, and you have all the big corporations and the politicians. So that problem we're dealing with right. There's so much money that's actually being moved to all of them. And in the meantime, all we're doing is trying to cover it up and make it look like, well, we developed a shot over here, we developed a drug over here, and we developed, we have the innovation here is a decide until it becomes an actual national.
But them doing all this shit.
Then it's time to start training.
Okay, but my thing, just going back to my original thought on this whole thing, I was up at like 2:30 in the morning because of my daughter, and I heard some bang, and I'm in a new house, and it's in a scale community. My neighbors' houses are $1 million. So I'm like, wow, big fucking in a new house, and oh my God, well, if the world would protect me, like these things are going on, and I'm like, wait.
I didn't know they would let you have a double-wide trailer in a neighborhood.
Oh, I moved into a Republican ass shit, dude. Front yard with a fucking bag. Like, I am
okay, so
here's
a funny segue to that quick insert here.
Yeah.
Why is it so quick for us to go ahead and designate and accept it as a Republican thing that you got an American flag in your yard?
Because Republicans fly the flag, and
okay,
they made that narrative themselves.
I'm not saying I disagree. I'm saying that all the fucking neighbors I met, which they came over with brownies. They came over with fucking bread. When I moved in, there was like, it was like I was in a movie, and all these
That's
people,
awesome.
all these cute kids came over with like brownies and bread and lasagna. I'm like, wow, you guys are awesome. But they're not motherfuckers, okay? Like, they have cattle, they have horses, they have bison. Like, my neighbors.
That's a whole different kind of an American you're dealing with there. That's a real. Fucker.
And that is why I moved where I moved to. That is why I picked the city I'm in. I love my house, and it is amazing. My dad.
That's part of the reason I'm so in love with you. Even such fucked up. No count. I'm not even going to get that because that's a sun show.
Again, I live in Pennsylvania. We just elected a brain dead idiot in the Senate.
Was elected for another 3. Pennsylvania don't have a fucking count.
Question while we're on the topic of the we've discussed through this whole entire thing. We discussed different of why we think recruitment has lasted and everything else. We've hit conspiracy theories. We've hit just generating. We've hit the triad and everything else.
Abilities.
So here's we discussed what we think could be the solution. How do we fix it?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me and before that, let me set the recording of next device. All right, that's a very good question, and I would. I differ from darkness.
Okay, so he's good.
I'm shivering.
Yeah. So from a PR point of view, PR, public relations, how you deal with something that comes at you that is positive or negative. So from a PR standpoint, COVID-19 didn't really have a ring to it. Yeah, it had death to it, so they changed it to COVID-19, which is a PR thing. You see that everywhere, and you know, it doesn't disturb you, it doesn't piss you off, it makes you upset,
the weird
but
thing
it makes you realize it's there.
Here's a very weird thing. Here's a Mandela effect. You just said that the COVID-19 designation is a more political thing.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Certificate of vaccination. Okay. The COVID-19. Okay. It is certificate of vaccination ID.
Identification 19.
Yes. Okay. So I have to say, my dad, who I love so much, was in a hospital restricted, and you have to wear a mask and gloves, and you're stood up surgery when you visit him. So when he's in there, I'm going every night, and every time I get a vaccine ID that is totally expired, that happened in 2021.
Wasn't that so weird? You have 6 or 8 spots on the vaccination card, and only one of them is full, and everybody's like, okay, that's okay. And wasn't that weird?
Yeah, they took me fully vaccinated, and I was like, well, I got boosted, and they're like, that's full. And I'm like, okay. So I go down there, and every single one of these fucking nurses, I mean, they know me by now. My dad's awesome. My family's awesome. They're going to deny me. They had to look at his fucking card, whether they've seen it 10 times or 100 times. I had to fucking show them this little slip of paper that I could print out on my computer, and they don't know these doctors.
I remember us talking
just to see my dad. Yeah.
I remember us talking that, and it was right on the LA doing. And I was like, you do realize that they are asking people to do this in Toronto, whenever just a week ago, Musa and a whole other politician were just there without their mask on, whenever they're requiring everybody else to do it. All of these things that were going on. It was just
which, by the way, is illegal. I can't speak so much for the hospital, but restaurants, stores, stuff like that could test whether the shot or not, the vaccination card is bullshit. Right, it's bullshit because patient-doctor confidentiality, it's none of your fucking business if I got a shot or not.
Yes.
Well, these lawsuits, these lawsuits started to pop up. The first one's in New York, where they're actually allowing all the healthcare workers to come back to work they fired. Which at this point in time, just so everybody knows, whenever you go to the waiting room in New York, and your ER time used to only be an hour and a half, and now it's 5 fucking hours, is because they fired 138 fucking thousand nurses just in New York.
Yep.
Now, the lawsuits are beginning where they're allowed to come back to work and get back pay.
Good.
So that's where the retribution is about to begin. That just started about 10 days ago. On October the 28th was the first time that lawsuit was actually filed and settled in New York City. They just brought back a shit ton.
Can you duck
Get the back-
go? Can you duck go? How much of the military has been fully vaccinated with
Yeah. So
what,
the
a
last time I
booster,
looked
one
at-
booster, or 4 boosters? What are we at?
So the last number, how much?
While he's
last
that
number
up,
that-
while he's looking that up, I'll give my answer to the question I had about how do we boost and just get it back to normal with recruiting. I say, like with everything else, with education and everything else, it begins at home. Moms and dads need to start teaching patriotism again, showing that there is honor in serving your country and giving of something greater than yourself. It comes back to love of country, and that is taught by parents. That is not taught by teachers. That is not taught by these idiot fucking politicians. That is taught by mom and dad.
Okay, can I just say one thing really quick, because I have been dealing with this for too long, and it's a very sensitive topic to me, but I homeschool my oldest child.
You guys are both
Okay?
drinking it at the same time.
You guys are both drinking it at the same time, like,
but I'm
hey,
the
we're
only
going to take
sober
a
one.
shot.
Figure that one
was
out.
funny. Okay, so
You are. Okay.
you are. Okay,
It
so
never happens with me around. Yeah.
to put effort and put in the work to my daughter for Veterans Day. All of her friends probably learn about, veterans, whatever. My daughter was not only learning about what they did and how they served and their sacrifice led us to our freedoms today. We wrote thank you letters and did them with Girl Scouts. We dropped at DU and retirement communities because
That's
she
awesome.
understood. I'm just saying, I don't
I
send
have
my
a-
kid to the black box. My kid, which fucking sucks. But
Well,
the fact that people teach her this.
I don't do anything because over the 5 to 10 years, much of a change as we want to military recruit is probably going to end up these homeschools.
Yep.
But with public education. But one of the things I do enjoy seeing is I have a granddaughter. And so at this age, I'm a ripe old age of almost being like totally gray and shit. But I can still
He's like
whip
91.
I can still whip a bunch of people's ass. You hear me? Anyways,
Should I piss him off by reminding him I'm almost 46 in 2 months and I still have no gray hair and a full head of hair?
yeah, that's fucked up. But here's the deal. I'm just saying,
It's still there. It's messy, but it's still there.
I dare. Okay. Wait, turn around.
Flesh color yarmulke.
that's what we got the built-in yarmulke. I'm just saying that one of the coolest I've seen is I have 3 granddaughters right now. And myself, my granddaughter is she just turned 1 year old last May. And
Congratulations.
I have 3 other grandkids between the I have a granddaughter. So my oldest granddaughter at her school, they basically had a reverse veterans parade. Where she's at in Berg, Indiana. Too bad. I'm sorry, he's Vietnam. But she came running to her. She's a little very blended. She's crying, her fucking eyes out. I knew all this stuff. She's like the greatest parts of being, a little human. She doesn't feel much with all this shit. And her grandpa, who is definitely a veteran, and she came in. I miss you, I love you, and all that stuff. She saw him yesterday, but still, I miss you, I love you, all that stuff, and kind of time. And so, like, we are able to, at the level, instill this pride we all share because of family members with the U.S. military. But the thing is, what I'm seeing with the next 10 years, maybe 20 years of our nation's advancement is the homeschool. It's going to change to where maybe that's where a lot of our military activity comes from. But there's going to have to be a change as far as the recruitment process. And here's one of the things, the really only thing I would suggest. Chris, you got brought in the late 90s, right? 95, 96.
And lied to by my recruiter. I'm still waiting for my steak and lobster. I'm still waiting for my steak and lobster dinner. I think the only thing I got was a fucking cold Big Mac from McDonald's on the way to the fucking airport.
Exactly.
Whatever.
You got put through that whole process, which is probably 97% of our current military's experience, right? And also the GI Bill, Right?
Don't start me on that.
Here's a great thing that if you don't jump through all the hoops properly, you're never going to get it. You're never going to see it. You're going to be fucked as soon as you seek advanced
And well, it's not just
right?
education. That's a common misconception by a lot of people. The GI Bill doesn't have to be used for education. It could be used for housing. It could be used for like starting your civilian life. Getting a house or whatever the case may be. The GI Bill is not just education. But here's something that a lot of people don't understand either, and this happened to me. Because when I got out of the service, I took care of my grandparents, so I didn't think about my GI Bill. I didn't think about using it for college or anything else. I got a job and took care of 2 ailing grandparents. By the time they unfortunately passed away and I went to go use my GI Bill, it had expired. So even if you jump through every hoop, it's got a shelf life.
Expired. So here's the thing, right? As far as that goes, the expiration of the GI Bill. So right now on your local news this evening that we've probably all the way through, but if you were to play it, you'd probably sing along the lines of some local native who's 60 and graduated from college. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that story?
Seen similar stories, yeah.
We've seen similar stories.
I don't watch news, so
all of us have. If you watch the local news, you probably have seen something like that over the lifetime of you watching TV. We've all seen.
What are you saying? Some 5-year-old person? I'm confused.
Yeah, they graduated. They went to school and graduated age of gold.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. Somebody who graduated from college at age 65, and Chris just gave his recount here where his bill expired because he used it in time.
Right
now, let's say that we switch places with Chris. And that 65-year-old lady who, joy to the world, has graduated from nursing college, and she's never going to use the degree. At the same time, Chris has just extended the use of the GI Bill by 1 month whenever he applied for it. Now, let's just say that we switch the current recruiting tactics to there's no expiration for you who served, and then B, while you're active, your immediate members, which means for Chris, for you, that would mean your uncle, your aunt, your mom, your dad, your younger brother. They get the GI Bill. And while you are enlisted, your spouse becomes eligible for the GI Bill.
And more.
You don't even have to go to that. Address a veteran. What that mean? For your family
in the world, I mean,
recruited.
Especially like if I, example, was still which wouldn't be, but let's just say for the sake of argument, it was
your wife, your ex-wife.
Yeah, that my family can be waiting for me on the outside without an expiration. Absolutely. Absolutely, that would mean the world to me. But I also have another way we can raise recruitment. This one should make happy left side of the aisle. It's just something I've always felt when it comes to the illegal immigration. You want to give these people a stay in the United States. You want to give them a free reign that even though they skipped the line and didn't do it legally like everybody else. Well, then I have a solution that works out for both the United States and illegal immigrant. Okay, you want to come here. You get caught here illegally. You want to stay? Minimum 2-year service.
But that doesn't make it a volunteer service anymore.
I don't care.
People in the ranks.
I don't care if it's volunteer.
I'm saying you'd have to create a branch of government just for them because they intertwine with anyone anywhere else. Like that bad shit.
Well, not really.
Here's one thing about that. Let's not even get into legal or illegal aliens. Talk about who's homegrown. They're one generation in. Okay?
All right.
Our military is currently losing 1/3 of its frontline defense.
Yep.
So, if what I just said, there's no expiration, your spouse is not eligible as well as your immediate members.
What about your cousins and your nieces and nephews? Like for me,
you can't say your cousins because they're fucking cousins.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying. Like for me, it would be my cousins, my nieces, and nephews.
I'm saying if you want this to actually pass as a law and something that can be used.
Okay.
In ideal world, yes, we would involve our cousins. But in real world, I know 25 people who say they're my cousin, but they really fucking ain't.
Well,
Say DNA. I'll give you my DNA.
That and the fact we got to stop thinking like
Okay.
Democrats too. Even the military has a limited resource of funding, so
I
you can't give it
agree
to
with
every Tom,
Rutter.
Dick, and Harry.
You know, I Rutter. It has to give you something in order to top or buy. How do I get one and we get thing?
Well, I'll give.
No, here's the inner root of it. Okay, and I'll pass this off to Stolle. He's probably going to have the definitive end, but here's the beginning. As a U.S. military volunteer, the ability for the United States government, who pays $8,500 for hammer, the ability to support me, for the fact that I am volunteering, allow my brother, my mother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, them to have their student loans forgiven, and me to have no expiration on my GI Bill, and my spouse becomes eligible for the exact same GI benefits that I have. Would not the military become an entirely different organization and a different representation for you to be recruited to, Chris Stolle?
Well, I'll slightly agree with you guys on that because you know we don't want to fucking buy patriotism, but at the same time, yes, the service members and their immediate families should be better taken care of, and yes, even after service, like the VA, for example. You know, veteran medical care and everything else is absolutely atrocious. Like, people want to bitch about the healthcare system now. Try being a vet and going through the VA. That's all I'm going to say on that. But so I do agree, but there has to be limitations on it because, again, it's not like they're drawing from a wellspring of wealth. You know, we can't just print money.
We could wait.
We-
could.
Oh no, we could as money as we want to.
That's
We've already done that. That's why we were.
That's what I'm saying. We're gonna pay $8 a loaf of bread and $8 for a gallon of milk and $12 for an 18-pack of eggs.
There has
We
to be a
printed money.
nominal that we don't end up like Russia have to follow ruble whenever they throw down the wall,
Right.
where people bugs, right? That is
Yep.
history. Okay, so if we're dealing with a government that is going to reward the service, okay, so at least, okay, so can't mom and dad, I can't excuse their involvement. That was decided today in the state Supreme Court.
No.
That we not give student loans on a federal level because you apply the terms on a federal level. That's the way it works. Okay? So we can't forgive mom and dad. We can't forgive my brother and sister, but I can forgive me for enlisting in the Marines, and I can forgive your wife who wants to become a nurse and she goes to the United States or the University of Southern Indiana. Why can't we allow that to the direct person?
No.
Well, no, that's what
I
I'm saying.
agree.
That's what I'm saying. As far as these shouldn't be these types of benefit packages shouldn't be able, especially as an incentive to new recruits. What I'm saying is that there has to be some limitations. Okay, Serenity and
That's
I,
why
I served in the military. For example, Serenity, she wants to.
Wait, you guys really blending together. I like her.
Right.
It's one for circle to just husband, wife, and kids.
But that's where I was going with it. It's somewhat of a limitation. That's an example. Serenity and I are married. No, Serenity and I are. I'm serving military. She is eligible for a spouse. No, I'm saying it in general. I'm saying there has to be some form of ceiling. But if I only served 4 years and but it's going to be 4 years, I guess I'm doing like.
Okay, let's be real simple. If Chris served as a seaman, and then
Don't make my tell you.
Serenity comes along later. At the end of 20 years of being a seaman, then he says, "I went to 4 years of college. Degree she covered."
No, that's fine.
Yes.
You become a PhD. You get covered by the government because what Chris did.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm not saying that she shouldn't get a GI Bill. What I'm
wait.
saying is that she shouldn't get a free ride for 20 years, especially if I only served 4 years. I do say go ahead and cover college.
We are talking about a different generation. You guys are talking about me. Okay, yeah. Like, come on, that's me.
Well, you're the example.
We are talking about
You're the unfortunate.
I know, but
You're the only female on the. Say, imagine me and
I
Core
get
married.
that. Okay, but that could happen.
That's in Space Force, not in the Navy or.
Well, the only reason we're not going to say that, not because of homosexuality.
There's a generation.
Hold on. The only reason we're not going to say that,
There is a generation. Hold on. Nope, my turn. Okay, there is a generation out there who I have many friends in, many friends, kids' friends in. There's a generation that we have termed snowflakes. Okay, they don't care about getting a job. They don't care about owning a house. They don't care about getting married. They don't care about reproducing. They don't care about the same things we care about.
They only care
So that
about
generation,
Snowflake is a real thing because
Right.
we've all seen examples that this falls into the exact same diagram that I did before. You have 10% over here, which is going to graduate in West Point and Annapolis, and then you have 10% over here that are butthole sniffers, and that's where the snowflakes are.
Hey, offended. Don't fucking
Don't do
don't.
your own limitation. So why should anything dealing to 10%?
okay, so I have a snowflake generation population around my life. One that I love. Fact. I know it's sad. I cry every night. Okay, so I know a lot. She isn't a drug addict. She doesn't have mental problems. She is fucking busy. She was raised in a that's her bad. But she's been with a man for like years. But they don't want to marry. They don't have kids. They don't want a house. They don't want to have things that, yeah, I was a kid, you know, I grew up, wanted to go to college, find the love of my life, get married, have a family, buy a house, you know, all the things that you think
Normal
of
people
are
want.
opposite. But the snowflakes, they don't want to have a job because they want freedom, because they love peace and love.
My
So
parents
they
went
want
through the same
freedom.
thing. My parents went through the same thing in the 60s. And then in the 1970s, they had me, and they got fucking jobs because that's the way the world works.
Mm-hmm.
But now
Okay.
abortion is such a big topic. They're all going to come in, you know, a whole
Because we're all split up as alternative.
24. I don't care.
You're proving the point of I agree with abortions.
I will take child. I will love
Okay,
you, child.
great.
Never abort.
Okay, so we're going to segue into information. We're going to have to
Time
take a
out.
piss, and I have to take a piss, and I have to grab a beer. If we're getting ready to
Can
dive
I
into,
really quick?
of course, we're going to dive into
Okay.
this. We have to call it dark, and this is part of the podcast.
All right, we might as well breaking the fourth wall portion of this. Let me go ahead and give an outro. So that breaking the fourth wall. Check out
Wait.
After Dark. Where can people?
All right, go.
I'm saying where after they get the
We're close on the Tony like is I was going to go else, and this isn't my normal discussion, but I think that we're getting ready to hit into a heavy area, and I think amongst three friends we're going to be able to do this and still remain friends. That's the only reason I'm going to record this.
You know that?
I think this is getting ready to go into an area where if it was friends who have as much as we do, it would probably end poorly. So we will go ahead and give this as a after break, and we will come back in just 5 minutes.
Right on. And as far as breaking the fourth wall, guys, very much for hanging with us. I hope you enjoyed this application. We want to know what you guys think of whether you're three, have points of view, and sure you leave comment section, comments down below. Ask us questions on Anchor.fm. I recently discovered that people can actually leave questions on episodes on Anchor. So please let us know what you think, or ask us a question if you want us to touch more on a topic that you feel that we didn't touch enough. Cool. Thank you.
Do enough to say that.
But never camera. Really should open an OnlyFans page.
Right.
Guys, if you hit the like button, subscribe. Check it out on the audio podcast we've found on Spotify, FM, iTunes, all the places you could hear podcasts. I'm not promising we're coming back regularly because every time I do, I wind up disappearing a couple months. Just check out. We'll release new content when we have something to say, and we will make sure you guys are first to see, hear it. And of course, happy Veterans Day to you. Thank you very much, every one of you, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, and I guess I'll throw in Space Force. Thank you very much for your service. There would be no us if there was not you. So thank you, bottom of our hearts. And last but certainly not least,
Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day. And last but certainly not least, here at Breaking the Wall, it did have a couple months ago, we have the opportunity now to express our deepest sympathies and condolences to the Lambkin fans of Dr. Kenneth Lambkin. Great man, truly sad to hear of his passing, and our thoughts and prayers obviously go to his family and his friends. Thank you very much, guys, for hanging out with us. John Breaking North.
Dude, his outro is long enough for you to do whatever the fuck you just did.
That's because I had a lot to say in that outro.
That's what's up.
No, I appreciate it. I totally love you, but like, yeah. My dad's topic, we need to hit that. Like me and Rutter hit that a little bit, but we didn't like really hit it. The fact that like these vaccines are fucking up people.
So that's an entirely different subject. So